looks like a comprehensive plan. I've emailed Harry several times, Greg, I've talked to you about it. Where is the comprehensive plan document for $98,000? Instead, we seem to be struggling our way, literally struggling, almost drowning by swimming upstream with the zoning resolution. And we're dealing with fences in front yards. That's important, but it doesn't address the issue that caused the chaos here with capital investment. We should be working on the land use plan. And I asked you a direct question. I have a few other things I want to say. I don't want to finish my presentation, but where is the land use plan document, Greg, Harry? Surely, 3 years later, $98,000, well, $120,000 really, we would have a draft land use plan with maps, with citizen participation, with goals, objectives, what the land use should be on Cougar Mill. Here we are, we're going to face, an open house is coming up Wednesday, and we're faced with another 122,000 square foot office development on Cougar Mill, which is zoned residential. How are we going to deal with that? Go back to the 2008 or 2002 land use plan? My concern is that we need to do the land use plan first. And I do admit to having some experience in this area, as all of you know. And it was a fatal flaw in not insisting that Jacobs get the land use plan done first. How can we do zoning if we don't know what the land use is going to be? What is a two-story mixed-use residential development, transitional development? It sure isn't 6 stories of office building, hotel, and 248 apartment buildings. You know, we had that argument, the community lost, and we're going to go ahead with what was approved. But if we don't do the land use plan first and do it in a robust way, then we're not going to be successful at all. I have my assistant here with me. I'm going to ask to distribute I don't think I have enough copies. This is what I think we should be doing, and forget about getting down into the details and whether we have an outreach program of transparency about the zoning resolution or not. We really do need to call a moratorium on what we're doing right now, and we really do need to go back and sit down and think about what we really want to do. 3 years have passed, and we're here talking about it, and we don't have any end products. We should suspend all the work on the comprehensive plan and zoning code update. We're not going to suggest it's wrong or argue about front yard fences or anything like that right now. I just think we should stop and rethink the process. Go back to where we were in October of 2015. We should appoint a steering committee. Harry was using the term board. I'm not quite sure what a board would be, but a steering committee is, I think Doug cautioned me one time about using the word boards and committees and things like that, but we need a steering committee of residents, of knowledgeable residents. Harry, you're right, absolutely right about that. That there's some understanding of what the process is. And this steering committee should represent the citizens, Sycamore Township Civic Association, because the association is actually initiating this and has the energy and drive behind this, trying to push this forward. So they should be represented, and all 3 parts of the township should be represented on the steering committee. We forget, some people, I know that the Board of Trustees does not, but some people forget that there's a western portion to Sycamore Township over there on Reading Road, and things are going to be happening over there as well. So they need to be represented. And out of that then will come a report, a status report. Call it what you want to. Transparency, status report, progress report, action plan, whatever. Out of that will come then an action plan about how we're going to move forward. And that steering committee, working with Harry, with Greg, with the trustees, then we'll be able to determine exactly how we're gonna proceed. Organizational chart, an action plan, a scope of work, and a time schedule to be determined. It goes back to the very basics of doing land use planning and policy and establishing policy related to land use and growth in the township. A lot of companies do this in the private enterprise, and a lot of public agencies do it. Deerfield Township is doing some of this right now, and other communities are too. Harry inventory to call around, I'm sure that he found that that was the case. There's a much better method to approach this than going ahead with the zoning resolution as it now stands. I mean, for crying out loud, I've talked with Kathy, I've talked with other people, I've talked with Greg and Harry individually numerous times. And I probably understand it as well as anybody could, and I don't understand it. I don't understand where this zoning resolution is going. I don't see how the moving parts are fitting together. And I've tried to read it, 209 pages, 210 pages, the red line version. There's things in there I just don't understand. And it's impossible to get the normal person to understand that as well. But be that as it may, I think the process is flawed, and we should go back. We should go back and start over. We're gonna make a huge mistake by continuing ahead in the face of what's gonna be strong opposition to this as it goes forward. Whatever it eventually gets to the trustees and is approved is not gonna be a very happy document. It's gonna be a divisive document, I can assure you that, because of where we are now and what our understanding level is now. In terms of statements, back in 2015, and Greg, I'll just bring this up. In the first kickoff meeting, there was to be established a small steering committee this is for the zoning resolution update and the comprehensive plan at that time. And that there was to be one public open house at the 90% completion rate. One public open house and a small steering committee. I am not aware of a small steering committee.
So I'll address some of that. We changed the process because our zoning code was fraught with a lot of law changes that you've got to make the change to your zoning code because the law has changed. I still think the process we're going on is the right one because while I agree with points 2, 3, and 4, you can always go back and edit your zoning code. But we have items in that zoning code that would do for an update anyways. And that was the charge given to Jacob. Let's do the zoning code first, and then we'll pull everybody together and do the comprehensive plan. And anytime you have a zoning resolution, you can always adjust it. And we were just due for a cycle of adjusting the zoning resolution, which is what we've done. And if out of the land use plan gets born certain ideas and thoughts, then there's no reason you can't go back to the zoning code and make the necessary changes to conform to those ideas. But we're so far along down this path now, we've got to get this zoning code brought up into the modern era with the recent court cases, updated graphics, et cetera, et cetera. I'm fine with 2, 3, and 4. My recommendation is you keep going on the zoning plan as you've been doing it now.
He just one of the most knowledgeable, probably the most knowledgeable in this room about the subject. And he just said he doesn't understand it at this point. So why don't you make it so that he can understand it?
Well, I don't know why he doesn't understand it. He wrote the original, so.
No,
I don't know. Jack, I don't know.
Well,
You and I wrote part of the original
Yeah,
together,
did not
so.
write the original. The original one, as you well know.
It's Hamilton County.
Was Hamilton County,
Right.
and we changed the name
Right.
because that was the most expeditious process at that time.
Right.
And it has not, to my, other than the adoption of the SPY district in 2008, I think it was, as a special resolution, to my knowledge, that's been the only change. There might be some other minor changes in the zoning resolution.
We've done a lot of little cleanup things throughout the years,
Yeah.
differentiate from the county, but,
But
hey, look, Harry and I'll do whatever the board wants. We've given you our opinion, whatever you guys wanna do. I'm happy to assist in any way.
Well, wait a minute, let me just make a couple other comments. If the board proceeds without a moratorium, I am confident that there will continue to be divisive situations, there will continue to be discussions and disagreements as we have here today over the years, over the next several years. And until we have a land use plan that makes sense, Tom, and that is supported by the board, the zoning commission, the citizens, the community, until we have one of those, and the board follows that land use plan, we're gonna continue to have divisiveness. And instead of making progress, we'll be consistently fighting every time something comes up before the board in terms of a zone change, or in terms of a policy. From sidewalks to yard signs and fences in the front yard. And that's gonna hurt the township if we continue this. There isn't anything wrong at all with calling a moratorium, just staying where we are for the time being. Sure, if there are some things, Greg, and I know Harry, you do it on a daily basis, and BZA deals with things, and so we could make some changes, some technical changes, and there's some grammar problems in there as well. Sure, go ahead with that. But as far as a total comprehensive modification of the zoning resolution, let's call a moratorium. And let's go forward together instead of being divisive. Because we're not in lockstep right now. We should be, the community should be, and the trustees, I'm sure you want to be. You don't want to be constantly fighting and listening to people complain all the time. We want to talk about what we can do to help the community and help the township move forward and stay strong. And keep that township, the town center up there, strong. That's pretty, I think Jim mentioned that, what you call it, the crown jewel. And it is, and we don't want to do anything that will hurt that. So the moratorium, I think, is really critical. It sends a message, a strong message to the community that says, look, we hear what you're saying. It's just Kathy and I and a few other people here today, but you know what was here for capital, and send a strong message to the community. We hear what you're saying. We're gonna back off a little bit. We're gonna try to figure out where we are, and we're gonna move forward now together on this and do the first thing that's the most critical, and that's a land use plan.
So let me just add one thing. No matter what you do, there are always gonna be those in the community that if you're not locked in step with, you're always gonna fight. So you're always gonna have a zoning power, no matter what you do. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
And I think my opinion is you need to keep the zoning process moving forward and then take Jack's suggestions, which is a matter of fact, which is what we were gonna propose when we get to that stage. But I think we're down the tracks now. This thing is moving. Let's get going with this comprehensive nature of it and involve all stakeholders for that land use plan. And then whatever gets born out of that, you adjust your zoning code. Other than that, if there's items in this current update that you don't want to address now, we just want to address the typos, the legal law changes, that's fine. Let's put those in place now and move forward. And then the other bigger substantive items, if there are any, then you address those down the road. There's no reason to stop the process to restart it again. We've already gone 3 years into this thing, and it's been a long, drawn out process.
Greg, if you're saying, if I understand what you're saying, I agree with you then.
Yeah.
It's because I think I alluded to that. We don't want to stop the process. We want to pause.
But Jack, what you're saying is let's stop the process. Let's get this group of people that, and if certain people aren't on this group, then they're gonna fight it no matter what happens. That's not a collaborative process. Because right now we are hearing from one voice. And the fact that we're not hearing from multiple voices means maybe we're doing something right. And we're just not, in this particular case, what you feel, something is wrong.
Maybe
You and I have been doing this a
you're not
long
hearing.
time. We've had these conversations over the years, and you know what you talked about. Sometimes people just don't care to show up because they're okay with the way things are. And I think we've given ample opportunity for the zoning code. And we can go and discuss, hey, look, this is a fairly controversial item. You know, this is not just a simple fence in the front yard or a typo or coming up with the new Supreme Court ruling on signs. That's one thing. Certainly those items can be discussed and then pushed off to a later date. There's no reason you can't constantly evolve your plan and your zoning code. In the past, we've taken the plan as, well, we're gonna do it now, and then we won't touch it for 5 years. Now we're gonna do it again, then we don't touch it. And then what happens is you keep going down this road, it's like, well, it's okay, we'll get to it eventually. And you get to the stage we got to. We have to be more proactive in our zoning resolution and our comprehensive plan.
Well, did I hear you say before, Greg, and I think I agree with you, is there are technical changes, grammar, mistakes, front yard fences, I don't know, you know.
That's the easiest one, because that's the biggest PZA item.
I know. I found that out, and I respect that, and I understand that. I wouldn't have, I personally, I don't know what anybody else would say, I personally would not have a problem with going ahead on that process. The technical, grammar, the changes that need to be made that do not really impact policy, you know, at any point in time. And go ahead and do that, but put aside for the time being, the comprehensive changes, the so-called red line version, which eliminates which eliminates 3 of the 4 SPY districts, which changes some policy within the zoning code, but not deal with those. Deal with a cleaner version, a simpler version that I wouldn't have a problem with that.
That's all simple stuff, I mean, you don't use them anyway, so.
And
what's
then,
the harm?
and then go ahead with item 2, 3, and 4.
I'm with Jack on that, I don't have a problem with that, because
Yeah,
most
I
of
don't
our
know.
changes are mostly code changes about front yard setbacks, et cetera, clarifying, like overhangs we got in there here, we've got all kinds of just stuff we've seen over the years that need addressed, because this document doesn't change the way you process zoning, it continues on in that process. It just cleans up some of your language, I think it makes it more a simplified process for people to be involved in. That's just my 2 cents.
Jack, when you say when you use the term moratorium, you're not suggesting that the township tell anyone, well, there's a moratorium on our zoning, you can't apply
No.
for a zone change.
Communities have done that, as you well know.
Well, and it's for
No,
a very
I'm
limited
not-
period
I'm
of
not
time, and
suggesting.
it's a very dangerous thing to do in terms of if you want to
No,
end up in
I'm not
court.
suggesting that.
And on the land use plan, I mean, if you had a land use plan, and let's say the property on the corner of Galbraith and Kenwood, you know, the plan says that should be, low density transitional. You're not suggesting that the township actually change the zoning on that from, let's say, you know, commercial to office or something, just because the land use plan says that.
No, and.
And I wanna make sure everybody
Greg and I are
understands
saying-
that, because, you know, the land use plan is just, it's a suggestion.
It's a guide.
But
It's a
you
roadmap.
don't go in and say, oh, well, this is now, you know, mixed-use residential, let's zone it for that. It doesn't work that way. You can't just go in and take somebody's property, well, you can, but you'll end up in court, and say, oh, you're no longer commercial, you're residential. So, I agree, the land use plan, it's the idea of, here's how we would like to see this develop.
It's a policy document that's adopted by the governing board, in this case, the trustees.
And it's basically been used in the past is when something goes to regional planning, they look at it and go, well, they're applying for commercial and the land use plan says it should be office, we think this should be denied. And that's as far as they go with it. If it meets the land use plan, they go, oh, okay, we approve it. If it doesn't meet the land use plan, they say no, which I don't think is.
There are other issues, but when you boil it down, that's exactly what happened with Capital. The Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission denied their application at that level because it wasn't consistent with the land use plan and a whole bunch of other things.
Well,
But Jack, that's not totally true, because regional planning actually voted on zone change, which they didn't have to, they weren't required to have a zone change, just like our planning and zoning did.
and I don't
They
wanna
both
get,
voted on something different than the
Capital
trustees
withdrew their
voted.
application.
I don't wanna get lost in the weeds on this. I just wanna make sure
Is that rhyme with weeding it?
you weren't suggesting that we put a moratorium on any zone change in
No.
the township. What you're saying is, and I like the word pause better, as far as the substantive issues, let's put it that way, in the zoning code, and let's get going on the land use plan.
Okay, let's use the word pause. There are a lot of words, but this is.
But moratorium kinda has a legal sense
Well,
to me, and that's why I wanted
understand
to.
that, and I certainly
clarify
did.
that.
But yeah, let's use the word
But
pause.
I wanna make sure everybody else understands that just because you put a designation on a property in a land use plan, the township, you can't just go in and change the zoning on that property to whatever that designation is. The zoning code is the law, the land use plan is just that, it's a
policy.
plan.
That's right. Tom, to answer part of your question, the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission also admitted, or by their policy, we don't have a land use plan. Because Hamilton County believes that a land use plan should be updated every 5 years.
I don't think anybody would argue that we need to get it
Right.
done.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with
Can
that.
why didn't we get something from Jacobs? How did we spend $120,000 and never get anything in the comp plan?
Well, Jack, as you know, you're billed up front for a lot of things, and especially when you guys did the work, you got paid up front for a lot of things. And
We
had
did.
Paul.
I never did when I was a consultant. I
Yes,
never
you
got
did.
paid up front.
I can tell you that you did.
Jacobs may figure out what to
Edwards,
do.
Kelsey,
but I didn't.
PKG, whatever it may be. You know, in this case, Paul has, he's got a lot of supporting documentation for the land use plan ready to go. I told him to hang on to it. I want to concentrate on the zoning resolution. That's what Harry and I, or really Harry, has been moving forward on. You know, so you effectively have prepaid for a lot of your work. And I did look up our last land use plan in 2002. I think we spent about 110 with, I don't know if you were PKG or Edwards Kelsey at the time.
I think we were Edwards Kelsey.
You might have just switched for just the land use plan, so, you know, 18 years later,
What was a
16
good
years
one?
later.
So we're,
But it was interesting
it's
because
good to test it.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't exist anymore, does it?
we only
survived a lot.
we had 3 residents on that committee. It was me and Paul and 3 residents. And we had Wanda Wagner, we think we had Greg Pansero, who eventually showed up, and that group tried to take the plan forward. We went out to the community, we held meetings, and attendance was awful. And we pushed it through and we got it done, so I would expect we'll take a similar route with the group this time. And we'll work on people to get word out about these meetings. Maybe we can do some charrettes. There's a lot of things we can do, but Harry just needs direction from the board on how you guys want to push forward.
Let me ask you this, when you were quarterback in that, back in 2012, you were involved, how many,
2002.
2002, how many
I
years?
had hair back then.
Okay, and how many years did that take? Did it go like this?
We did about 2.5 years, I think, on the comprehensive plan. But
Yeah. something.
we had come out of a 1980s plan, and this was the first time we had adopted our own zoning. You know, Hamilton County had controlled development for years, and you see what kind of development Hamilton County allowed to occur. It's hodgepodge, and we picked it up and tried to get some type of cohesiveness. We did a Kenwood progress plan. We've done all kinds of plans to try to get out of that suburban single lot development over the years. We've done the best that we could to take it forward. This process I don't expect will take as long, especially if we have a good steering group behind it and you have residents of varying backgrounds and opinions that want to weigh in on it.